Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Thursday, October 24th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Nebraska game in 2 days, the game against Michigan in 37 days. The big talk around Columbus this week and even last week during the week off was the performance of the Ohio State defense at Oregon, and specifically the performance of the defensive line. Yeah, there was a bunch of conversation about the defensive backs as well, and Denzel Burke and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the conversation on our board, and I think other places online over the last week or two, has been about the defense and their ability or inability to generate a consistent pass rush. What's going on there? What kind of alignment is there on the defensive coaching staff between Larry Johnson, Jim Knowles, Ryan Day? What's going on there with all that kind of stuff? So on today's episode, you're just going to be hearing from Ohio State head coach Ryan Day, and really just about those issues. We're going to start with one that's a little broader than that. We're really then going to take a deep dive on what he had to say specifically about the defensive line, the defensive staff on the whole, how that's all working right now, what they want to do philosophically, what's going to change, and much more. So let's start with a little bit of a broader one. What is Ryan Day's biggest area of concern that they want to clean up now, heading into the Nebraska game after the loss to Oregon?
Well, coming out of the game, I think when you look at the game, the first thing you recognize, we lost the turnover battle. Anytime you play in a game like that hurts you. We didn't create any turnovers. That's the first thing. The second thing was the explosive plays. Too many explosive plays. So right out of the gate, that's the first thing. And then we didn't win the rushing yards. So, all of those things have got to get fixed if we're going to win a game like that.
Now we're going to move on to the defense, and this is one where Ryan Day was not giving a lot of real long answers. Sometimes he's a little more outgoing, effervescent, and excited, happy, however you want to describe it. He was a little more, let's say, terse on Tuesday when we got a chance to talk to him. So is Ryan Day happy with the pass rush? And is he happy with the scheme being used right now by the Buckeyes on defense to get to the quarterback?
Again, I'm not happy with anything right now, but certainly we want to get more pressure on the quarterback. There's no question. And it's the coach's job to make sure that we put our players in a situation, an environment to be successful. So that's the first thing we got to look at. And then it's the player's job to go do it and execute it. So all those things were part of the conversation this past week. And, we definitely need to do a better job there.
Going to broaden things out here a little bit, not just on the defensive line, but kind of the game on the whole. After a lot of these games, when Ohio State doesn't play well, the conversation around the Woody is, was it a scheme issue, a talent issue, or a coaching issue that caused them to not play particularly well? That's a pretty common conversation around a lot of college football programs after a loss. Jim Harbaugh rather famously did not take a question about that in a very welcoming manner after the 2019 Ohio State-Michigan game. But Ryan Day, was it a scheme issue, a talent issue, or a coaching issue in the Buckeyes' loss at Oregon?
Yeah, I think the first thing, like you said, you look at the personnel. You have to make sure we got the right people in the right spots. I think we do. Maybe we can tweak a few things, but I think we have the right people in the right spots. Then it comes down to scheme. I think there's some things that we can do better for sure, putting guys in better situations to be successful. And then there's the coaching, and I think we definitely can do a better job there of making sure that the guys understand exactly what they're doing, getting them lined up, and then going from there. But I think it's a combination of scheme and coaching.
One big change that got made following the 2023 Ohio State football season was that Ryan Day handed over play calling, first to Bill O'Brien and then to Chip Kelly once Bill O'Brien left for Boston College. So that has freed Ryan Day up to focus on some of the bigger picture stuff, but also focus on other areas of the team beyond just the offense. We see him around the defense. We see him around the special teams, on the practice field. Has he been more involved with the defense this season, and especially in the last week or so following that loss to Oregon?
Yeah, definitely been in there more in the last week than I have in the past. And, ultimately it's my job to make sure that all three phases are the way they're supposed to be. So I'm going to make sure that gets done.
Here was a question that has gotten asked a lot on our board and other places online over the last few weeks, even last few months, even last few years. Are Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson, defensive coordinator and defensive line coach, on the same page with what needs to happen to generate more pressure moving forward?
Yeah, for sure. I know that there was a point maybe early on when Jim got here where there was conversation about the jack and all that. But our goal is to put the best 4 rushers in the game, or if there's 5, maybe there's 5 or whatever it is. And so that decision's been made, and we reevaluate those things. When you have to, certainly after a loss, but even during a bye week, you're going to do something like that. But no, I think I've watch closely, and I think that they're both on the same page. And we all want, this week especially, we've wanted to look at everything, and nobody's feeling good about anything right now. It's just coming off of that thing, there's a lot of guys on edge, and that's the way it should be, after a loss. But no, they're on the same page. I think that's the point. And I've been in there the last week a little bit more and just evaluating everything. And I think the one thing is, there can be, conversation in the room, but when you leave the room, everybody's on the same page, and that's happening. I'm seeing that. But it's again, our job as coaches to make sure we're putting them in the best position to be successful. And you got to evaluate it, and you got to be honest, and you got to make sure you're talking the truth in those moments. And I think that's happened the last week, and excited to get back on the field here.
Ryan Day brought in Jim Knowles following the 2021 season. That season was kind of a disaster. You had Kerry Combs get demoted mid-season following the loss to Oregon. Matt Barnes stepped in and took over the defensive play calling. They were both gone at the end of that season. In came Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State. He'd had some great success there, a very statistically successful defense with the Oklahoma State Cowboys, and then came to Ohio State. He's had some success there as well, sort of gradually improving statistically year over year. But what he's doing at Ohio State is very different in some ways from what he did at Oklahoma State. So when he was hired, what was the conversation like? Was it kind of just do your thing? Or was it, hey, we respect what you did at Oklahoma State. We like what you did at Oklahoma State because that's why you're here. But hey, we kind of have a different type of player here. So you don't need to necessarily do as much or as the same kind of stuff you did at Oklahoma State. Let's work around what you got here instead. Which one of those conversations was it?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Yeah, I mean, my goal, bringing Jim in was to be the head coach of the defense and to run it. But there was also, we have, recruited very well in the defensive line. So, when he was at Oklahoma State, they didn't have, 4 down D linemen and then certainly no depth behind it. So, he had to be creative about what he was doing there. Decision was made a long time ago that, we have the D linemen here at Ohio State that can play with 4 down linemen. Now, might we consider some different fronts and changing that up? I think it's all very good conversation, and we have to make sure that, we're going down all those roads to make sure that we're putting these guys in a chance to be successful. We're making it, not easy for the offense to just, line up and know where we're coming from. So, but I think at the end of the day, to answer your question, it comes down to the personnel you have and where you are, and to put them in a chance to be successful. And, I feel like, we have plenty of D linemen here, and we have the right guys on the field. But we got to make sure that, we are changing it up and making sure that, it isn't just, a 4-man rush straight all the time, for sure.
Every once in a while, you will see a quote and think, oh boy, this is going to live on in the Ohio State football zeitgeist for years and years and years. I think back to the backup Oklahoma State quarterback calling Ohio State's offense a defense basic. That was a good one a couple of years ago. Last week during the week off, Nick Saban, former defensive guru and head coach at Alabama, among other places, a guy who knows a little bit about college football, he called Ohio State's pass rush antiquated. That drew quite a bit of attention, put a bit of ire from the Ohio State fan base and others. In Ryan Day's mind, is that accurate?
Well, when it doesn't work, it's accurate. It's not working. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's different strategies on how to go do that. But when you have the results that you do right now, then certainly it's not working, and that has to change.
And finally, there are lots of questions around the defense. That was about as many questions as I can remember a coach getting on a single topic at a press conference. But with all that said, with all those questions out there, how much faith does Ryan Day have in Jim Knowles right now, and why?
Yeah, well, as I go in the meeting and I had hard conversations with everybody, and I know what the plan is moving forward, and I'm involved with that plan. So yeah, I got confidence in all those guys on that side of the ball, and I know what we need to get done, and we're going to get it done.
We're going to put this one up a little early today because we're going to be hearing from Ryan Day yet again later tonight. I want to just kind of get this all out there for you right now, just to make sure you got a chance to hear all of this stuff, because we're probably going to be talking about some different stuff with him later on tonight, as well as with the rest of the Buckeye players we're going to be talking to. Usual Wednesday night at the Woody. We will be there, have our interviews live streaming sometime around 6:30, depending on when practice ends. And then Tony and I will have a live episode of the Buckeye Weekly podcast following those interviews. So go ahead and pencil that in for 7:30 or so, give or take, on Wednesday evening. And then on to another busy game week. Buckeyes and Nebraska kicking off at noon. Big noon kickoff on Fox. The Big Noon Kickoff pregame show will be there. A lot of stuff happening around campus on Saturday. We will be there for all of it. Tony, Kevin, and I covering the team, are covering recruiting. Got our whole team of X's and O's gurus all at BuckeyeHuddle.com this week. Busy week, huge recruiting week for the Buckeyes, bringing in some very big names for this Nebraska game. Much, much more. A lot of stuff to talk about this week. We hope you will join us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Talk about all of it. And also, of course, at YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. We talk about it all there, too. Lots of different content, lots of different ways we give you stuff, written stuff, chats, all sorts of stuff. Plenty of very active threads, very active conversation about Ohio State in the fourth quarter on defense over the last couple of years, and what stats are real and what stats aren't. And a very, very interesting conversation about that just in the last day on our board. If you want to be part of that community, this would be a great time to do it. We're giving you access to that first month for just $4.99 for that first month. Give it a shot. Try it out. That first month is now, we're going to get you into Michigan week at this point. There is a lot of stuff to talk about this next month as the Buckeyes get ready to take on Penn State and the newly expanded college football 12-team playoff. Oh, yes, that Michigan game. All that coming up in the next month or so at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We hope to see you there. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.